So you've got this brilliant, world-changing idea for a startup. That's amazing. But here's the thing. The jump from a great idea to a great company, that's where so many founders get tripped up. Today, we're going to look past the pitch deck and get into the real blueprint for building a company that's actually built to last. Let's dive in. All right, first up, I want you to just think about this for a second. When you hear about a startup going belly up, what's the first thing that pops into your head? A bad product? A market that just wasn't there? What do you think it is? Well, you might be surprised to hear this. While, yeah, a bad idea is never going to help, it's very rarely the actual cause of death for a startup. The truth is, tons of startups with genuinely great innovative ideas still end up in the graveyard. And it's because they missed something way, way more basic. And this right here, this is the whole ballgame. The best way to think about it is that your startup is a house. Your product, your branding, that's all the cool furniture, the slick paint job, the awesome home theater. But none of that matters, absolutely none of it, if the foundation underneath it all is cracked and crumbling. You can't build a skyscraper on sand, right? Same deal. So that brings us right to our first big point, the blueprint. And I know, documentation and paperwork sound like the most boring words in the world, the total opposite of that move fast and break things startup vibe. But trust me, this isn't just about filling out forms. This is the actual architectural plan for your entire company. And what's really key here is that word scale. Every founder dreams of that hockey stick growth, right? But as this quote points out, that kind of growth is literally impossible without this foundational work. Getting everything documented early isn't a distraction from the real work. It's an investment in your future. It's what lets you grow without everything falling apart. So what does this blueprint actually look like in practice? Well, it's a few key documents, and you can see the main ones right here. We're talking about an operating agreement, we'll get into that in a sec, and of course, solid employment contracts. But also stuff like a business requirements document, which is just a fancy way of saying a document that explains exactly what we're building and why. Think of each one of these as a critical support beam. Okay, let's zoom in on the big one, the operating agreement. This is basically your internal rule book. It's the document that answers all the tough, awkward questions before they turn into massive, company-killing fights. Who owns what? Who gets the final say on big decisions? What do we do when we disagree? Getting this stuff on paper early will save you so many headaches down the road. And speaking of fights, that leads us perfectly into our next critical area. You know, the most common and the most damaging problems in a startup often happen between the very people who started it all, the co-founders. That partnership can be your greatest asset, but if it's not protected, it can become your biggest liability, fast. Just imagine this nightmare scenario for a second. You and your co-founders split the company right down the middle, 50-50. You both quit your day jobs, you're all in. But just 3 months later, after a bit of the initial hard work, they decide, this isn't for me, and they walk. What happens to their 50% of the company? This is where a vesting schedule becomes your absolute best friend. I mean, just look at the difference on this table. It's staggering. Without vesting, that person can walk away with half your company for doing next to nothing. That could kill the whole venture. But with a pretty standard 4-year vesting schedule, they only get the equity they've actually earned over time. If they leave early, they get a tiny slice, protecting you and anyone else who's still committed. So the main takeaway here is that your founder's agreement has to be absolutely rock solid. You can see the checklist here. It must have that vesting schedule we just talked about, but it also has to be crystal clear about who owns the intellectual property, the code, the brand, all of it. You've also got to spell out who's responsible for what. And this is huge. Have a plan for what to do when you just can't agree. Defining this stuff up front is what saves companies. Okay, so we've shored up the internal foundation, right? Now let's talk about the connection to the outside world. Because having a solid legal structure is only half the battle. The other half isn't just about what you're building, it's about who is building it. And that brings us to this really powerful idea called founder market fit. We hear about product market fit all the time, but founder market fit actually comes first. It's all about the deep, genuine connection between you, the founder, and the problem you're solving. It's about your personal passion, your unique experience, the things that give you an unfair advantage that no one else has. This slide just breaks it down so perfectly. Founder market fit is the who. It answers the question, why are you the right person to do this? What unique insight or personal obsession do you have? Product market fit, the what, that comes later, when you use your unique position to build something people actually want. So what does this actually look like in real life? Well, it's the healthcare founder whose empathy for patients drives every decision. It's the veteran ad exec who, after 20 years, sees a huge gap in the market that no outsider could ever spot. Or, and this is maybe the most powerful, it's the founder who is just relentlessly obsessed with solving a problem because they lived it. That is a powerful why. Okay, so you've got a solid foundation. You've got a powerful why. Now you need the fuel to actually build this thing. Capital. And for a lot of early stage startups, the answer isn't a fancy VC firm, it's the crowd.
Now, crowdfunding feels like it's been around forever, but things really changed back in 2012. The Jobs Act completely transformed the landscape. It opened the door for startups to raise real money from tons of everyday investors, not just accredited ones. This made it an incredible tool for proving there's real demand for your idea before you ever have to talk to a VC.
A great crowdfunding campaign doesn't just happen, though. It needs a clear plan, like what we've got outlined here. It all starts with a story that people can connect with. From there, you pick the right platform, show that your idea has legs, and, this is so important, you have to really engage with the community of people who are putting their faith and their money in. And here's a massive, flashing red light warning for you. If you're going beyond just selling a product and you're actually offering people a piece of your company, an equity stake, you're playing in a whole different league legally. You have to make sure your platform is SEC compliant. Getting this wrong can lead to some really serious trouble. So you can see we're kind of coming full circle now, right? We're back to that central idea of the foundation. All of these different pieces, the partnership, the funding, the idea itself, they all need to be protected. You really have to think about building a legal fortress around your company. This quote right here just says it all. For so many startups, especially in tech, your intellectual property, your code, your brand name, your unique process, that is the company. Not protecting it is like building a bank and then just leaving the vault doors wide open. So here it is, your final takeaway checklist for building that legal shield. You've got to pick the right business structure from day one. Be proactive. Go out and file for those patents and trademarks. And this is a huge one. Make sure every single contract you sign says that the company owns the IP that's created, not the person who created it. And look, most importantly, don't try and do this on your own. A good lawyer isn't just an expense, they are a vital part of your team. And ultimately, it all comes down to this one question. A great idea might get you off the starting line, but it's a solid foundation that gets you across the finish line. By really focusing on this stuff, the documentation, the partnerships, the legal protection, you're not just building a cool product, you're building a company that can actually stand the test of time.